Top Lobster Productions.
Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
The side of the federal building has been blown off. Jesse?
They believe they were part of a CIA project called MK Ultra.
Just like a segment of society that is not living in reality.
In a certain sense, we're kind of a little bit more Israel's vassal state.
There are police chiefs facilitating prostitution networks.
Do you understand? It's all in your head. It's your move.
What up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Dump with Austin Picard from the Underclass Podcast and our boy Jose Galasson from No Way Jose. What's up, buddy?
Good morning. Dude, we need to figure out what we really need. I just realized.
Yeah.
Because, like, we have these great intros, and then then it just immediately goes into, like, this. Like, we need to figure out. I have no idea how these newfangled people do it. It's not something they sit you down and teach you when you start podcasting, but I need to figure out how to do that thing to where, like, that transition thing you've seen on other shows where, like, when then it comes in and it kind of is almost like a 50%. On Tower Game, I'd be like, you might have like the back and it kind of like dies off, some sort of like, so it keeps the hype a little bit and then drifts off. I need to figure out how to do that. We need to do that. Nerds, any nerds out there, let me know how to do that, and we'll start doing that because I think that'll really be conducive for the whole vibe experience. Nice. But anyways, Austin, pleasure to be with you. Anyway. I'll shut the fuck up. It's your show today. I'm riding second seat. That's the format these days. So what's up? What do you do?
You're good, brother.
Yeah.
Forgot to pull us off stage anyway, so our dumb ass faces were just sitting there staring at everyone for a brief moment, but all is well. Sloppy Toppy's on the shitter right now, so it's very fitting. Man, so well, first thing, brother, what do we have? We have too much to really discuss. Honestly, I'm tired of seeing beheaded babies, but they're unfortunately, not unfortunately, but I mean, it's just like just having to see this like doom scroll cycle, on a daily basis. It's just kind of ridiculous. Like, we are actually witnessing the footage of dead Palestinian babies, and considering how all of this began, it's kind of fitting in a way.
I don't know if I guess it's a little bit of a topic. I don't know if this is one we really want to dive into. I just thought it was interesting. I was listening this morning to Anti-War. Apparently, they already are running hiking tours, so doing like excursions type things over in Syria. Because for those who and this is something I feel like you actually kind of do have to pay attention to even know that we're like that Israel is in Syria and that they're occupying a portion of it. But yeah, it's funny. It's like obviously the next step will be settling, and they'll start taking over that area. But they've been pretty clear throughout too. They've made multiple statements that like, we're indefinitely staying here, pretty much. Like they've used that language throughout. So it's like, 100%. I mean, they've left the language where it's like open to where, like, I guess theoretically we could leave at some point, but no, we intend on staying here for the foreseeable future. Is basically how it's always put. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And you consider, honestly, they're just going to use. Really, they'll exhaust their resource in as far as Jelani is concerned, as the leadership in Syria, and in this very moment.
Hi, Star Crimes, new fan.
Crime.
Welcome to the show. I feel like I recognize that name somewhere, so maybe it was we interacted somewhere. But anyways, go on.
Yeah, just it very much seems like, as we've been discussing, total escalation in every single theater of war, and that includes remaining, occupying a specific and consistently growing their occupational footprint within these territories. It's not only Syria, I mean.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere. It's what's crazy, but it's a multi-front. It's Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, West Bank, I mean, the Gaza and West Bank is kind of like muddy depending on what you're talking about because it's like technically it's kind of within their territory, but it was never really their territory to begin with, and that's kind of the key issue here. So it's like,
100%.
yeah. So in a certain sense, it's four separate fronts. Although it's like that's what I'm saying. It's kind of hard to call it a front when it's like within your sort of territorial domain, I guess you could say, but not really. So
we're gonna get to the Discordianism. I am tripping. I found a very valuable, seemingly endless resource, and one of my top favorites as well. Like that I've discovered on this path of investigation and like in just independent investigative research, and so discovering this link. Because I usually go to these resources and type in,
keywords,
anytime I discover new organizations or groups that I feel like I have a connection somewhere and I can kind of bridge that gap by certain keywords that you can put into various search engines that are never, ever going to be the mainstream.
Yeah.
Like anyone using Google to look anything up at all is absolutely retarded. I don't know what you're doing,
Okay, I'm going to push back on that. I wouldn't say absolutely retarded. I would say if you're doing it without being aware of it, because I use Google all the time. But if I'm like, now if there's certain things that I'm like, I don't know, like it is for research purposes. Yeah, I'm gonna go to DuckDuckGo or something.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Not for research. Not for research.
Yeah.
I use Google for like looking up,
It's just because it's a default thing that usually is on your phone home screen already. So you're like, what look up thing, and then Google.
For sure.
Yeah. So.
But I have set DuckDuckGo as basically, my primary search function or search engine on everything.
Google.
Yeah, and that obviously was seemingly compromised at a certain point, if not.
Isn't it Google that used to be their what is it? I forget their saying was "Don't do evil," and then they had to change it or some shit.
Man, I forgot what it was. It was definitely one of those like just
Are we doing evil, guys?
DuckDuckGo you own. I know, dude. DuckDuckGo got sold and bought out. It wasn't really too long ago. It's in the more recent past, but yeah. Anyway, I discovered this very extraordinary connection that let's just say Oswald might have a brother that we didn't know about, and he might have a father that was potentially a Nazi officer. So let's just we'll put that.
Because the story, I know the official story with Oswald is that his dad died at a young age or something. So he's like him and his brothers were raised by his mom, kind of deal. I think
he
and his
Kerry
older brothers.
Thornley,
He had a bunch of older brothers. I think.
I think he and Kerry Thornley were potentially bred in a Nazi eugenics experimentation breeding program. I'm not fucking with you.
Let's fucking. I mean, let's go.
Neuro-linguistic programming for Manchurian candidate applicable. Like I'm not. It is like one.
Dude,
of the
if you look into the background of Oswald, I'm like, whoa, like. I mean, you're like, I'm not kidding. Like, it's almost like, I mean, I know you're being joking, but like defensive. But it's like you look into the background. It's like it's not that crazy, really. You look at like, and especially when you look into that, it's like, I mean, even I know with your Discordianism connection, the whole idea is that this guy was like created some sort of other religion, and this is an FBI front, and then he's made this story, much like the OKC thing. How there was a story before, a book that was very much almost exactly like it. Like the occurrence of the Oklahoma City bombing, and the same thing happened with this, and this has happened. I believe there's other deep events, the same exact thing. It's like it is like some deep level Masonic theater shit where it's like there's so many layers. You're like, you sound insane, and it's like hiding an absurdity. It's the idea of like SRA, and it's like no one believes this shit, and they're able to get away with doing awful, horrible things to children because then it's like, well, when they go tell a therapist that like, oh yeah, fucking Goofy molested me, they're like, what? Like, what do you mean Goofy molested you? You're like, but it's like, well, there might have been a guy in a Goofy costume that like doing some crazy shit, kind of getting off, but like it does kind of make you lose your mind when you do get into the weeds of some of that stuff, especially when Oswald, the multiple Oswald theories, which just kind of ties into this guy as well, because I believe there's part of the theories that he might have been one of the numerous people who impersonated him at different points in his life. And it's like, we're talking about someone who's gone through his life at different portions from damn near birth, looking like there were times when he was in other places, there were people impersonating him. Just a lot of weird shit about this dude. So it is like, if you're telling me, oh, this guy was bred to be some sort of fucking glowy baby from birth, and you're like, I'm not surprised. Like we've talked so many times about all these how much of this is fertility rituals and this and that and creating children. It's like, where do these kids go? Like, yeah, obviously we think that awful things happen to a lot of them, but not all of them are killed. Like, what happens to these sick, fucked up experiments, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, it makes a lot of sense in the context of the parents being willing, you know, perpetrators in the context of sacrificing their own child. You know, like, honestly, man, that makes way more sense that, you know, if you have that disconnect, you know, this is just some sort of farmed out, you know, honestly, and plus half the time you have to realize, I think, that the parents themselves have been, you know, manipulated psychologically in many ways, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And but still, it does make a lot more sense that just having that sort of, you know, third party involvement between, like, there's really the separation that was kind of formed if you're considering the idea of not actually, like, you know, going through the natural order of how you would have a child, you know, genuinely in any sort of way. Well, then of course you could separate yourself emotionally, and I might add, significantly easier if you're a sociopathic maniac who I think there's a lineage of these mind manipulators and how they kind of employ these sophisticated techniques on their children, or at least children in proximity to them, usually, like, right. So, for example, in the X dossier, right, the grandparent, right. So I don't know. It's just interesting, to say the least, to point out. But because that's really the crux of what I wanted to talk about more than anything, because I think it's really the most fun too.
Oh yeah.
But and also it's amazing attempting to process the theology and the philosophy behind these strange occult organizations that all seem to, as we were discussing privately, form around this very similar time in right in history.
I'll go ahead and I recently, this will kind of might explain it. I recently, just the other day, kind of went through. We talked the other day. I was like kind of reeling because I was going through some of the recent Aquino files that dropped. I know I had said I found part 2 of it, and I thought I'd read all of them, and I was then I realized there was a part 2 with like 300 more documents. I ended up actually reading all those documents.
It probably wasn't as hard because they were
very much, I could just skim through a lot of it, but it still took a long time. And there were some semi-interesting stuff. It was mostly just kind of witness statements and stuff, and it kind of was helpful for kind of gaining more of an understanding for myself. I don't know what was new, but anyways, when I went through that, there's like a huge kind of, like, in their own words, like the history of, like, Temple of Set, and they're all different, like the theory of it and blah blah blah, and like in that, like, they were kind of going to when it was founded. I believe it was founded, what did I say, 75, and then but the what's his face, Temple of Set, Aquino, he was in the Church of Satan, which was LaVey. And that disbanded, or no, not disbanded. He left in 1972 is when Aquino left. He broke off from ideological differences. He kind of had like a slightly more woo-woo, but yet, like, when you really look into it, it's still kind of like not really. It's not really religious. It's still kind of like lingers in this metaphysical. It like straddles the line of both. Whereas Church of Satan was very explicitly, no, this is like an atheist organization. It's just a social group for homos, basically. And so but it also I forget if there was I meant to actually ask you if there was what the specific document was you were referring to in that, because I think it was some document. But anyways, you referred to in one clip that gets passed around sometimes in 1973 how MK Ultra transitioned from the the labs into the cults. Yeah. And I just found it particularly interesting. You have 1972-ish. We have a schism within the Church of Satan, an avowedly atheist organization, but that calls themselves Satanists, so it gets a spooky reputation from the outside looking in, that then creates a schism, kind of slightly reorganizes the structure a little bit, and then also then becomes more woo-woo, more in the realm of religion, and kind of does the same thing, basically. So I found it particularly interesting because it was at that crux of time when things are shifting, and it became more cultish. I guess it almost probably came to where it was more applicable to be able to tap into cults, whereas something like a like a Church of Satan. If you have a Church of Satan, a LaVey trying to tap into a cult, you're like, dude, you guys are atheists. Why are you bugging us? Like, it makes no sense. Whereas Aquino can probably throw some sophistry around and kind of make it sound like they're in a similar type place. You know what I mean? So I just noticed that, and I was like, something weird about the timing of all that, and how there's a schism.
Bud.
And like, let's be real, Church. What was it? LaVey was some fucking dude running fucking. I can't remember which organization, but I don't know if it was like the Irgun or what, but he was, I swear he was running guns at one point, or weapons or drugs or some shit for some fucking Zionist organization. Like, he's a Fed dude. Like,
all of them were intelligence. Right. And that's the craziest part. Hey, thank you, Juan. I appreciate you, brother. He says, nice show on Monica's channel Friday. I had such a blast talking to Monica, man. Like, it was such a good time. But, yeah, I'm probably going to go back on, honestly, because we have so much more left on the table as far as a lot of this is concerned, what we're discussing at this very moment. And it was the penal colony was the name of that paper from the UC Berkeley professor who had sent that to William Holsinger, the aide to Congressman Leo Ryan, who, my God, my friend, I'm realizing now. I knew, like, when I did the Patty Hearst episode, of course, Leo Ryan comes up once again because he's probing Vacaville, the mental institution, that psychiatric facility that was housing Donald Cinque DeFries and Charles Manson in the early 50s as well. It's where he got his NLP, mind control programming, and also was trained in the techniques and how to utilize them himself. And that's what was happening with Cinque, was his code name for Donald DeFries, right? That was the code name given from Colston Westbrook at Vacaville, which is so crazy because, but anyway, you get into the reality of the fact that that's the exact same time where all these military intelligence assets start to organize these cult groups that are really practicing very similar philosophies in many different ways, neo-Gnostic. Yeah,
that's why I pointed out. Like, I'm really excited to bring this to you guys because I'm literally basically just going to read it, maybe provide a little commentary. It is like, it's sort of woo-woo, but you look at the structure. If you look at it and you're like, you kind of look past the woo-woo. You're like, what is this? The structure is basically exactly like the Church of Satan structure. There's like a hierarchy to it, but it's more. What's the word I'm for? Better OPSEC, I guess would be the word. It essentially prevents people from being able to peer into the inner circles more, as opposed to a Church of Satan. So it's more exclusive.
Wrong. Yeah, I know. I agree with you. But yeah, I do think Paperclip was opening the floodgates, not only for occultism, but for these mind control techniques. So many of them. I mean, oh my God, dude. I was looking into the Phoenix techniques that were being deployed through. It was trauma-based mind control. I mean, they were torturing the shit out of these people, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they animal abuse. Like,
I remember you mentioned that. I had forgotten that when I was digging into that. Yeah, there were reports. I mean, it's kind of a black hole because, like, knowing what's true and what's not, because it's like you kind of go there and, like, let's be real, you're either a glowy or you're going to be dead. But yeah, there were crazy fucking reports of insane torture, and just it was wild. I believe there was some sort of leak. I remember it might have been from your coverage. There was some sort of leak, and then just no one gave a shit. Like, it's just wild.
It was Douglas Valentine. He's done a lot of really great work on exposing, these covert ops that were really led into these domestic operations that again, what were those organizations created for? Plausible deniability. They were, and that was the reason they needed these cutouts in order to stage these domestic operations covertly. Yeah.
Just state a quick one-paragraph summary, even with an attached picture of Michael Aquino and try not to look just even ridiculous for even just proposing him as an entity that exists.
God.
You know what I mean? Like, if you go to a normie, if you go to a normie and, like, did you know about this guy that, like, was a intelligent agent, the military intelligence, he was a Satanist, founded the Temple of Set, this, they'd be like, this dude, you're making this shit up. This sounds insane. This didn't happen. And that's just like official, like, And so now if you're trying to get into like the Presidio or anything like that, they're gonna be like, dude, you're fucking nuts. Come on, get the fuck out of here. Like, and then once they accept it, they're like, okay, so they had some weird fucking dude. I do want to correct the record real quick. I don't remember what show it was I said recently on. I believe I said that Aquino was a full bird colonel. I was wrong, and so it's a big distinction. He's a lieutenant colonel. So I just don't want to throw that out. Well, I just had it in my head because it makes a big difference into the degree of control he has. Because full bird's like one away from general, but I mean, to be fair, lieutenant colonel is one away from full bird. So
Paul Benassi says that obviously he always said that it was Aquino who arranged the abduction of Johnny Gosch, and also had ordered the abductions for the paperboy fetish scandal that happened that cast the wide net that inevitably resulted in the kidnapping and murder of Jacob Wetterling and the ritual murder that took place, where his fucking father was involved with direct connections to these occult dude. Again, it's like how many times, and then guess what? What does that directly correlate to? Not correlate, directly connect in with the North Fox Island, which isn't just North Fox Island. I mean, that was obviously Odyssey, and so you just follow that directly into. I mean, that's the
whole
Child
Eye of
Murders
Chicken
being
Hawk
cool.
is. The whole book, Eye of Chicken Hawk, is like following the web of different pedophiles, and then just slowly just kind of ends up being a big old circle that comes right back around. That's the whole book, and you kind of just follow. And then this guy with this network, and then that work, and then this guy from that network was in this. When you realize that, you're like, oh, these are in essence all just one big network. They're just smaller nodes of a network.
And it's what Jim Rothstein called the network of human compromise. That's what he called it. That's what they would refer to it as. And it all inevitably, it was not just it. He tracked the process, from the East Coast to the West Coast to Mexico to London. It was just like it honestly, man, it was something that, when I started kind of reading into a lot of his investigative research and the evidence that he put forward throughout his career before he was forced into retirement and then attempted to, they tried first of all, they tried to recruit him, at a certain point, and he just said absolutely not, and wouldn't, because I think at a certain point they really respected him when, specifically if you consider when he defended Marita Lorenz, right? Frank Sturgis, and he had arrested him. Whenever he had arrested Frank Sturgis, that whole scenario resulted in him being forced into a court trial with Frank Sturgis, where it was all essentially covered up. And Sturgis himself like shook his hand at the end of the interesting kind of legal conflict that took place, and basically said, we could really use somebody like you, right, with basically your expertise and principles in place, but obviously you would have to compromise some of those, and he just absolutely refused and went into really just private life and retired and went and actually tried to run for mayor, I believe, in Minnesota. Or I think it was Minnesota, but still, it's interesting to still hear him, like, because he shows his face every once in a while at some of these, really just trying to like bring some spotlight, at least the victims, right, who have gone through so much, and try and bring more evidence to the table to attempt to help their cause. But really, it's interesting to say the least that when you look at the evidence that he puts forward, it kind of starts to tie all of that together even more in a more significant way than I ever would have expected. But then this daunting and terrifying right spectrum of reality begins to take shape, and it's like, what the fuck is happening here, brother? There's some sinister underground that is very well established, that isn't just, it's not just what I had initially suspected, which was like this kind of intersection of organized crime and the intelligence apparatus. No, it's like a very well-established occult underground that was established to almost run protection and facilitate the pedophile underground. Yeah.
That's what they've been for time immemorial. Is these sort of entities that have been. That's what they've. I guess you call them intel agencies. I'm sure that you could call them something else over time, but we've had similar type things as time goes on. That's what they do. They protect the power that's in place. That's what they do. I did want to take we were kind of talking about the religion. As I find it interesting that and this kind of goes into a little bit sort of what we were talking about on the phone the other day, which obviously you guys didn't hear, but we just explained a second ago. But the concept of like the religion around that time, the swapping over. You look at entities like the process. As we've talked about, you look at what is it, Scientology. There's another third one that's really similar that I always forget for some fucking reason. But essentially, I mean, even then, we've talked multiple times. Even many religions have similar type, and it's a very cult type thing. But a lot of the essence of these, I mean, you look at something Scientology, like you're supposed to go clear, and you're supposed to fucking you admit all your sins to people. And it's like, I forget, you're supposed to it's like an e-meter that tests like how emotional you are about it. So essentially you're literally rehashing traumatic experiences over and over again until you feel nothing about it. Yeah. Which is like, I don't know, that could easily be messed with. The process sounds like probably, I don't know the specifics of their process, but it seems probably like a little bit more of an aggravated, darker version. But it's like these all seems to be carbon copies of a lot of the similar thing. I mean, look at Discordianism. I don't know the tenets of it, but it's just all these. And as you were talking about earlier, the idea of like trying to figure out the religion of the powers that be and the degree to what they believe it, or if this is just some jaded something or other that they just throw woo-woo on to distract us. It's kind of hard to tell. It's just it's the same things over and over again. It's just different names, slightly different, putting slightly different flares on it, essentially. Like as I mentioned with the Church of Satan and the Temple of Set, you look at them and you look at the structure and they're basically the same thing, just slightly different things. If you look at their ideology, it's very similar. Like, I mean, it's very much like, it's almost like an egoism type thing that they threw some fucking woo-woo in.
The overtones of Nazism and shit, right? The symbolic nature of just really the inextricable connections to the occult that the Nazis, practiced as well, which that has to be, as far as you look at the issues of the Process magazine, you're like, what in God's name? These dudes were like worshiping the Nazi occult in certain ways, skulls cracked open with Nazis like goose stepping out of the blood. Like, it was so interesting. And that was in like the Charles Manson issue, right? The death issue or something, I think was what it was called. But yeah, I don't know. You pair that in with all the, the intelligence assets that were in place in the Phoenix program that then sort of helped. I think they were very much a huge part of facilitating the Gladio network, right? And honestly, understanding really post World War II paperclip rat lines, like it begins to make a lot more sense. And especially, I had mentioned it was on Grey Pilled with Jules, I think, that I had mentioned the bestiality aspect of the trauma-based mind control involved in the Phoenix program, and how they were utilizing snakes, just like we had talked about in Detroit.
Yep. Dude,
they were gang rape with using eels, snakes, hard objects, and then murdering with individuals with electrical shock, having people literally commit murder while they forced them to gang rape as well. So that was like imagine that, man. Like, what would that do to you? You know what I'm saying? Who knows what they were, what profile they fit, and characteristics that they had in the first place. You know what I mean? And then you find out some method of, ratcheting up those strange tensions and notions within your psychological framework, and this sort of relationship, this imbalance with violence. Like, it's so interesting, dude. It's the psychopath machine. It's what was happening with Steve Smith up there in Oak Ridge. It's basically what he explained and described with Peter Woodcock and all these strange people who, by the way, another German death cult. Like, what's going on here, man? I see a pattern once again. But yeah, anyway, it's Wait, we might as well just keep talking about Discordianism and this bullshit right
yeah,
now.
I guess. I mean, if you got, I don't know if you have a visual aid or something to bring up, but yeah, I mean, or if you want to back up and kind of explain for the audience real quick. I know I've caught the beats. And you've been talking about this lately, but this is the guy who created this. This was, I guess went to the Marines with Oswald, and he wrote a book, which is basically damn near the exact same plot of what happened with JFK. Some sort of like disaffected Marine or disaffected military member. I don't know if it's specifically Marine
the Soviet Union
defects. Yep, and then I believe then assassinates the president. I believe or something like that. Like
it is so it's asymmetric warfare. It on a level. Then it's like what Sam tweeted. Honestly, it's like I think that's what I was happy that he appreciated that, because how could you not? It's another example of what you had brought up earlier, where the lines blur between fiction and reality. You know what I mean? And they sort of like they play this predictive programming game that, man, it is sort of like ritual summoning magic of some kind. It's almost occult in the way it plays out, if only because it falls into this, these preconceived, these expectations that have been subconsciously, sort of seeded into our subconscious mind. And but yeah, the idle warriors, my God, brother. But when I look up, you look up this CavDef thread on mind control programs, it's awesome. I'll send it to you because it's super long, and there's so much, like there's a lot of just really like clean, I would say just threads that you could kind of like tap into and fall down into this proverbial rabbit hole at any moment and come out with a lot of different information that you wouldn't have prior knowledge of, and that's what I'm experiencing at least. And I'll send it to you because it's like talks about it. I like the way that it kind of suggests, it summarizes these mind control programs, if only because it falls perfectly in line with what exactly we kind of describe on a daily basis through our research. And so, but I found it hilarious because it brings in Michael Aquino specifically in the Mind War. And just saying, for decades, obviously, the U.S. intelligence community has devoted substantial resources to studying mind control, subverting an individual's free will, and placing it under the influence of others. One of the most well-known such programs, of course, is MKUltra, which often becomes synonymous with all U.S. government research into mind control. In reality, there have been numerous overlapping mind control programs by several different U.S. intelligence agencies, including the OSS, CIA, military intelligence. The CIA has claimed that its research ended in the early 70s and was met with little other than failure. There is, however, a substantial amount of evidence suggesting that mind control research was quite successful, has been employed in covert operations abroad and at home, and secretly continued beyond its official termination, frequently using cults as deniable fronts. For the U.S. intelligence community, the end goal of mind control is not merely controlling individuals, but shaping entire societies, a doctrine epitomized in the Phoenix program and Michael Aquino's concept of mind war. I thought that was such a good, like, just brief summary of really just mind control programs in general.
Oh, yeah.
And, and what a good way to kind of like, I would say, introduce another occult organization that of course had this kind of unnatural rise, or seemingly in my mind. And Jim Garrison himself, I believe it was in his 1988 book when it was published, On the Trail of the Assassins, he claimed that, hey, this was a cutout for the CIA, man. This organization was a cutout for the CIA in order for them to run domestic operations covertly.
Dude, we're going to have to, one of these days, we're going to have to go and read the fucking Kabbalah. Because I don't know if, I'm sorry if this is distracting for you guys or for you, but while you were talking, just so you guys had something to look at, I did, show up pictures You go to images of Discordianism, and it's like all you see here, Discordianism. You see lots of photos. I mean, this is their thing they praise, some Greek goddess of strife.
Yes,
and then we see all these symbolism, which I'm pretty sure these are Kabbalah type symbolism. These things right here, you can see like the apple. I swear the apple is Kabbalah related. Then obviously it's in a yin yang thing. Then we see this is literally the Kabbalah
in
thing.
nature. The apple is in the picture of Lucifer summoning his legions, and the apple is in the shackle, dude. And the shackle perfectly mirrors that of the Statue of Liberty in the Big Apple, motherfucker, in New York City, which is all occult and just inherently symbolically.
And
there's.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's also, too, I was skimming through just kind of get an idea of what this religion is sort of about. Just super quick. Obviously, it's a Wikipedia skim, so, like, do that with that what you will. But I thought I was interested. I remember when you covered it, because you did, like, 6 hours of content over this fucking weekend that I listened to. There was I remember you mentioned it said something was like a parody religion or something. Because Yahoo, I guess it says right here, Yahoo categorized it in 2001. Then the Discordians themselves tried to fight that, and they're trying to say, "Oh no, it's a real religion." And I thought it was interesting. It sounds a lot like what I was describing with Temple of Set, but honestly, kind of even like a weaker almost version of it. I mean, I'd have to look a little bit more. But you kind of read through this, and it sounds like it's very vague metaphysical concepts that they attach some sort of woo-woo to, and then kind of be like, oh, it's sort of a religion that seems to be going on. Like you see here, the foundational document is Principia Discordia, written by Malacalypse the Younger, an alias of Gregory Hill, this fucking goofy-looking fuck, which I bet you if you looked into him, he probably has a spooky past too, but this isn't the guy that we're curious about or interested in right now. He's an alias of Gregory Hill. Principia Discordia. Well, it's weird they didn't mention the other guy. The other guy that there's two guys who wrote this book, so they didn't mention him in this little thing that's up here. But we can come back to that. Anyways, the Principia Discordia often hints that Discordianism was founded as a dialectical antithesis to more popular religions based on order. So there you go. Although the rhetoric throughout the book describes chaos as a much more an underlying impulse of the universe. So they're bringing it down to base concepts, chaos, which is the same thing Temple sets, like individualism versus collectivism type thing. Like they bring it down to those base things, and they're the black magic people are the key, the Luciferians are the key individualists. But this one's focused more on chaos versus, I guess, maybe order. Or something along those lines. So,
he very much was practicing, the Thelemite sort of ideology of Aleister Crowley.
Sounds like some Aeonic Age type bullshit. Exactly. The idea of like we're using chaos to bring on a new order or something like that. So that's the implication. Okay, which is 100%. Super common.
And he had, I think there was even a dispute between him and Greg Hill, who he had. Apparently, they were very much a part of kind of coming up with the just original idea, honestly, because apparently they were in some bowling alley in 1957, and this dude, Kerry Thornley and Greg Hill, were debating chaos. And Thornley believed that from chaos would come order, much like the Masonic dictate, order from chaos. It's the Rosicrucian dream. It's the Rosicrucian mission. And that is another thing. Why you saw the symbolism that Jules pulled up, that picture of the old picture of Kerry Thornley with the black rose in his mouth. And it's like, this motherfucker. It reminded me instantly of Sirhan, just because what is happening? We have these overlapping threads that directly connect into Thornley's like, inevitably he acknowledged I was a part of what did you just find?
No, I'm sorry. I'm listening. I'm like I'm getting better at like multitasking, but I'm looking through this and dude, I'm just like fucking like just whoa, I'm just waiting because I'm like, oh shit, I have some shit because I'm looking through this and I'm looking at once again all these fucking spook religions. It's kind of edge boy faggotry that they fucking like, throw on some slightly different aesthetic on every time. Like we're the super individualists or we're the agents of chaos bringing on a new order. Like shit like that sounds super fucking cool, right? It's all just edgy boy stuff. We're the fucking most evil, but we're gonna bring on a good new world order. through aeonic change, or evil brings on good. But anyways, point being is this is very similar structure to, as I mentioned before, Church of Satan, Temple of Set. Similar. I mean, I guess this isn't really like revolutionary because this is also kind of a similar concept in a lot of religions, but even more so, I think you'll see what I hear. This is a great example. We'll go through this real quick. These are a few different ranks, I guess, within this the Discordianism. You have the episcopos, I guess, are the overseers of sects of Discordianism, which they have created. Now, I forget what the equivalent is in Temple of Satan and Temple of Set, or not Temple of Satan, Church of Satan, Temple of Set. They have different ones as well. It's kind of hard to remember what's what.
As well.
Yeah, exactly. They have the Ascended Masters at the top or some shit.
No, that was the OTS.
Oh, OTS. See, yeah,
but
they speak to Eris. See, they speak to Eris, whoever the fuck Eris is, through the use of their pineal gland, which that sounds like some DMT type fucking woo-woo bullshit. Exactly. It is said in Principia Discordia that Eris says different things to each listener. She may even say radically different things to each episcopos, but all of which she says is equally her word, even if it contradicts another iteration of her word. So, that's sounds like prime fucking MKUltra bullshit. Popes, so another different level. According to Principia Discordia, every single man, woman, and child on this earth is a pope, including in Principia Discordia is an official pope card that may be reproduced and distributed freely to anyone and everyone. So I guess we're all popes, and I guess they have 5 classes of saints, who are those who best act as exemplars and are close to perfection. They kind of have this as out of order. I guess it should be episcopos, then saints, which should be the thing below it, and then popes are just kind of a term used for everyone. We're all popes. But anyways, they have 5 classes of saints, so those who expect as exemplars. The first of these classes, Saint Second Class, contains real human beings, deceased and alive, with higher classes reserved for fictional beings who, by virtue of being fictional, are better able to reach the Discordian view of perfection. An example of a second-class saint is Emperor Norton, a citizen in 19th century San Francisco who, despite suffering delusions, was beloved by much of the city. He's honored as a saint within Discordianism for living his life according to truth as he saw it, and is a disregard for reality as others would perceive it. Anyways, and there's more about their organizational chart. So they do have... So they have the House of the Apostles of Eris. So they have a whole hierarchical structure, which obviously coming down from the very top, which you have these Apostles of Eris, as we mentioned earlier, the Episcopos, the ones who speak to Eris directly, and they pass on their word, downwards, which is a similar structure to all of these. It is there's a how information is dispersed, and this is how it is. It's you have these people at the tippy top who can kind of say whatever, and even then it's almost like a double blind study essentially kind of deal. It's if you look at these episcopos, they theoretically don't even know each other, you know what I mean, or know what's going on with each other specifically. So I don't know, I just find it particularly interesting the structure of these entities, and it's they all kind of look the same. It's all just different woo-woo language, just different fucking dudes trying to fuck goth chicks. I mean, I say that as a joke, but it's really actually a lot darker than that. But it's glowy ops, dude. This is what this is.
Yeah, 100%, bud. Yeah, it very much, to me, it resembles directly the philosophy of the process and the hierarchical structure.
This chick brings up a good point. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off because you had a good point there too. But she said Eris is a Greek god of strife, that's their main god in this religion, the god of strife, chaos, chaos, because that's kind of getting at it's discord and chaos. Greek fraternities in college, what do you think those are? And I was I never really put that together. We do have the Greek
Skull and Bones, and yeah. And what's the other one? The something and key but yeah, the 100%, man. It's just. And it again, this kind of leans into the gray forces of moderation that the process and actually practiced, and I'm not sure how much, because you had obviously you had the Luciferians, you had different hierarchical tiers within the process itself, so they kind of you would have death and violence advocates and a Satanist wing, right, which were all practicing this sort of end of the world doomsday vision, which that was, again, this seems in the vein of accelerationism, the Discordianism, right? And as far as if you're attempting to cause chaos or discord and to usher in order, or your prioritize their preferred version of whatever that looks like, right, is obviously what they're attempting. But still, it seems to kind of play into the very same, right, philosophy and mentality, just the psychological structure of the ideology. But here's what I found to be most insane, and this is what I wanted to show you guys this morning in regard to this, because this is, again, David Livingstone. All right, this is one of my favorite resources. Anytime he has anything to offer on a subject, I am going to at least pursue it at length, and it takes quite some time, because usually there's he's kind of schizo in nature as well, but he takes his time. So it's interesting to read his work, but this is fascinating, dude, and especially considering the picture that we're about to witness as well, because there is a possibility that this is the reality, and it makes a lot more sense than what we've been fed and intended to believe. So, of course, we just mentioned, right, the Roman equivalent of Eris, the Greek goddess of discord. That is the identified, as far as I had just mentioned, the Masonic dictate, right, order from chaos. So this Greg Hill individual, he insisted to believe that order was merely an idea that humans projected onto reality, where only chaos prevails. They identified this chaos with discordia. That is when Eris comes into play. And then I think this is important because, of course, it brings in, there's this whole aspect of the trickster playing out here, which if you look at basically they're playing us as fools is really the whole kind of philosophy. I think the trickster and the paranormal is what
devil worship in general. Is that what you're mean? Well, I mean, that's from the jump. It's as I've referenced multiple times. It was like, I mean, I don't remember what preceded. If there was, I'm sure there was something that preceded it, but I mean, for us, really, the kind of the OG is a Church of Satan, and it's like, dude, that was like and this is why most people, I guess if they're not caught up in like a generic, I don't know, conservative Christian, whatever, they'll be like, yeah, Satanism, that's just like atheists who are, just need some sort of community. And that is true. I mean, that is actually like, that's once you dig, there is a community of these people. And I think, I think likely at the lower level, it is probably a bunch of losers trying to bang goth chicks that are fucking, that do really desperately need community, and they aren't religious. Right. So they don't have that natural inbuilt community that you get from Christianity. Or just any religion in general, and so they resort to that. But I mean, obviously, there's that's kind of how it started. But there's a lot more to it. I think at the higher levels, a lot darker shit. And then obviously, then we have off branches to where like a Temple of Set. But even then, you look into it, and then even the Discordianism, as I've said multiple times, they don't really actually seem all that religious. I guess Discordianism's not a great example because it is like, everything about it's not really, except for the fact that you're like, well, we got our orders straight from Eris. And you're like, what? You know what I mean? Like everything else about it is like not, aside from that. Right. So like that sounds like we have some inbuilt FEDI mechanism for orders disbursement, and we're getting shit from Eris. Like, okay, how is that any different than what? Like, oh, we're getting our orders from Charlie. Oh, we're the angels, right. We're getting our orders from Charlie. Like, you know what I mean?
100%. But again, just like the process, though. This philosophy of Discordianism really plays into Satanism and Nazism, and it also they implicate libertarianism as being essentially compromised.
Motherfuckers!
Yeah, bro.
They're going after Robert LaFair. If I remember,
that's really what they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right, whatever.
That's what the main thing was. It's really just
what
sort of
even
a brief
I've covered him before. He's so insignificant. I don't even remember what the fuck he wrote. All right, that sounds shitty. I mean, I guess no one knows what the fuck I wrote either. So
I did think it was hilarious, though. But yeah, so what really matters the most is this sort of background here of the Discordian Society, which apparently founded after the 1965 publication of its first holy book, the Principia Discordia. In 1964, Thornley had won a scholarship for a 2-week course of the Freedom School in Colorado Springs. Chief promoter of Discordianism happened to be an Esalen celebrity, Robert Anton Wilson. So we have the Esalen Institute instantly, which I believe is just, the Tavistock Institute in modern day in domestic U.S. That's effectively what it really was. But it's kind of like the symbol in a way of culture creation and sophisticated mind control techniques all coming together in one place to then sort of influence pop culture and every other aspect of society as far as public perception is concerned. And that's where a lot of these modern day psyops originated from, where in essence it kind of Frankfurt and Tavistock just immigrated to the U.S. in the form of the Esalen Institute. Is kind of what happened. But so you have that connection instantly, and then also the fact that he's hanging out with Timothy Leary, right, CIA agent, and obviously one of the key factors in pushing what was it? I can't remember the term that he would tune in, drop out, some shit. I forget what the term was, but it was very much a philosophy of like, it was kind of like it was a new age philosophy centering around psychedelic drugs. It was basically just a way to compromise the mentality of the youth in many ways. And
real quick, please tell me before there's going to be more of a connection here than just that this Wilson guy was the chief promoter who also wrote with other people. You know what I mean? Because you see, like, I mean, I'm assuming maybe they'll get to more, but it's like, because they're implicating Murray Rothbard, Robert LaFair, Timothy Leary, which, yeah, okay, Timothy Leary, Frank Chodoroff, and Paul Goodman. I don't know all these people. I mean, who knows? Maybe Murray Rothbard was a Fed or some shit. I kind of very much doubt that. But I'm just saying, like, all of these people,
I don't think
that's the connection here. I hope he makes more of a connection.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying that... I think you should read this whole thing before, interpreting this as
exactly. That's what I'm saying. I know you've read it, so I'm asking you a little bit of spoiler. Is there going to be, because he mentioned earlier just Robert LaFair by name, kind of skimmed over Murray. So I'm like, okay, maybe Robert LaFair did some fucking weird shit. Right. But I'm assuming he's kind of making a case here. I'm just making sure that's not the end of the case, because if so, I'm like, all right, dude, that's not good. It's extremely weak.
Right. No, again, it's like, a lot of what he does when you read his writing, and I encourage everyone to, not everything is direct. Yeah. Right.
That's worthwhile information.
Yeah.
But like,
saying, hey, by the way, these key figures were also involved, and at least in direct. What is it? Just affiliation, at least affiliated by this connection, and at the very least, not knowing, the average person or someone who's a little bit less knowledgeable on some of these things might interpret that as, oh, well, then all these individuals who were named have to be compromised because they were named. You know what I mean? I don't think that that's really the point of what he's saying, but still. It is interesting, at the very least, especially you think of all these intellectual thought leaders that have such key, prominent roles in the structure of, just society intellectually and the path that we're on in many ways, right? And kind of that it is, they say politics is downstream from culture, which is why they manipulate our reality in so many ways, I think. And so, yeah, it's at the very least important. And again, as I said, you read through a lot of this work, and it's schizo in nature, as I mentioned prior to beginning this. But there are very many important connections and things that I've discovered that he's pointed out that have legs, man. And once you pry a little bit deeper below the surface, it's like, okay, all right, there's a reality here that is potentially darker and much more sinister than we would ever want to conceptualize. But so Thornley, right, ultimately came to believe that Robert Anton Wilson was his MK Ultra handler. This is what he says. He says this out loud and acknowledges this as well with I forgot. I'll pull up that name here in a moment, but Wilson was the friend of this Richard Bandler, who in the 1970s with John Grinder would develop an evolution of hypnotherapy called neurolinguistic programming. So just that alone is like, holy shit, that connection is direct. a product of the Human Potential Movement, which started in the Esalen Institute, which became popular in the psychoanalytic, occult, and New Age movements in the 1980s, in advertising self-help and politics in the 1990s and 2000s. As Wilson recalled, Kerry Thornley had the impression that I came to Atlanta more than once, and that I had given him LSD and had removed the programming the Navy had put into him when he was in the Marines, and that I was one of his CIA handlers. This is Adam Gorightly, by the way. So this is another source that glows. So it's something that you can't, you know, you have to be very skeptical going in with Adam Gorightly. I think that he has, I think he's done business shilling for the process. And even has like some strange connections to like imagery and symbolism involving the process, and an artist with Charles Manson, I think, was even painted into it. I can't remember what was going on there, but again, I'll have to look at a deeper level. This is another reason I'm so excited to have Dana on, man, when we finally get to have this conversation with her, because there's so much that I feel like she would be able to fill in a few of these holes for me personally. But beyond that, it would just be a worthwhile conversation, very fruitful. I'm sure,
because I don't know if this guy was palling around with process people, which we've mentioned multiple times now, I believe. So it's
he claims he was, yeah,
which just kind of like drives to like there's some underlying concept going on here between all these different carve out religions. There's some weirdness with the idea of making books, of like of future deep events, that are going to happen, which is nuts.
Oh yeah,
like just the idea that it's multiple
like
deep events.
It's like it's like 9/11 symbolism years before and leading up to, what was it that's wasn't it album artwork had like a plane flying into the towers, and there was just a lot of different things like that. I think specific movies as well that I'm trying to recall, but anyway, still, it's just very strange. You know what I mean? That would be coincidental, and that I don't believe. But still. So it gets even more interesting because obviously Mae Brussel, I respect the hell out of her work. I think she's extremely valuable, and so it turns out that this Robert Anton Wilson, CIA agent, when asked about the claim, Wilson legitimately responded, if I were, I would deny it. Right? So it's basically like Richard Dwyer when he was asked in the Jonestown connection. But and yeah, you look at this dude, man, like straight up. It's absolutely ridiculous that and this is honestly not the best picture. They should have given him a better picture in this one, because in reality he
Jack Black looking motherfucker.
Yeah, right. There's the older pictures of him really do much more justice as far as like these connections are concerned, because you do see the Rosicrucian symbolism and the undeniable sort of like hippie occult style that he was kind of embracing, and he obviously was sort of trying to assume some type of Christ-like symbolism that like the Robert de Grimston and Charles Manson were affecting as well. What is that? Why are they all attempting to look like Jesus Christ? That was very strange.
I don't know. Maybe it's a tale as old as time. I mean, I'm not religious. I know a lot of you guys are, but even then, even if you want to take it, even if you want to maintain your belief in Christ, it's like you look at what was it Mithra? No, that's the major figure. What was the one going on literally at the time of Christ that was like more of a military order to it, I believe. It was the at the same time there was that religion. I believe it's Mithras, I believe, is the major character in it. I can't remember the name of it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But around the time of Christ, the same one that kind of basically was exactly the same thing as Christianity. So like, I don't know how exactly as it started, but you could even look at it that way and go, oh, they were following the template of Jesus. You could just say they're copying yours. That, I mean, obviously from my perspective, I would say it's more likely it's just kind of a dialectic that's kind of worked as long as time as for time immemorial, essentially, that you do something along these lines, very 100%. Similar structures to it.
Dude,
Which,
so-
if you do want to believe in Jesus or that, or then it's like whatever, they're copying the original. They're inverting that which is pure. So I mean, either way, I still think it's inverting that which is pure, whether or not that's true. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's all, by the way, like this is all neo-paganism as well, which is, again, why does that continually resurface? It's an undeniable thread that you can trace, and yeah, you can sort of chart a course into modern day where there are still these very deep and dark connections to this strange way of life. But I know that according to like these allegations that Thornley made about being a victim of mind control, again, it's like this is from the prankster and the conspiracy. So it's Adam Gorightly again, and someone that I don't trust that much, but I will say he has told the truth, and he, you know what I mean? And he's definitely like seemed to have been one of those disrupting forces. And again, I have to look closer into this individual, right? Because it's again, it's just always remain in karate stance, as Sam says, and remain skeptical at all times. But as far as I'm concerned, these details seem to reinforce and fit, at least it kind of creates the perfect shape for the puzzle piece I'm looking for. So who knows if that's some sort of bias that I'm pursuing, but I honestly believe that this is at least worth acknowledging as a potential reality, and that is that obviously we know Kerry Thornley was considered to be Oswald's doppelganger, right?
Yeah. Which,
he
funny
was
enough, I
born-
don't think a lot of the doppelgangers really even looked all that much like him, because that's the thing, is a few of them really don't. But I mean, you got to think, you don't really got to get them to look all that much like it when you're dealing with like recording time. You just need to make sure similar clothing, just the basic beats, probably
hairstyle. Yeah, exactly. It really wouldn't be too difficult. But yeah, he was apparently born 2 years before Oswald, but in 1957 was stationed as a radar technician. At least Oswald was at Atsugi Air Base in Japan, right? Which was the CIA headquarters in the Far East, where the CIA conducted extensive LSD testing and mind control experimentation. So in 1959, early 59, before he himself would also be stationed at Atsugi, also as a radar technician, Kerry Thornley served for a short time in the same radar operator unit as Oswald at MCAS El Toro in Santa Ana, California. In 1962 is when he wrote the Idle Warriors, obviously, about their time together, describing this state of apparently complete and total chaotic insubordination that prevailed at the base during their time, which was apparently attributed to these soldiers being under the influence of these psychotropic drugs, right? And these various drugs, like, so then you have obviously the novel about the soldier defecting the Soviet Union, as Thornley describes it. It was a way of exploring Oswald's possible reasons for doing the same by projecting his personality into Oswald's. This is what he fucking says.
Yeah. And bearing in mind, he wrote this before it happened. So, like, he's saying, you're like, oh, yeah, I was thinking about my homie Oswald. You're like, yo, dude, what the fuck?
Now, after the assassination, he writes another book that was apparently a nonfiction work called Oswald, which largely corroborated the lone nut assassin theory peddled by the Warren Commission, the official investigation of the JFK assassination, obviously. And so that alone is like crazy, right?
That so he wrote a follow-up book. Well, I guess it wants to be a follow-up, but he wrote another book that was basically the same book, but
nonfiction.
But it was nonfiction. So it was a research book. Okay.
He wrote a nonfiction book called Oswald after the assassination.
Okay, and it was taking the he
official
did it.
line.
Yes. But whereas his book, did his book spell out spell it out as the official narrative, or was it one of those ones where like no,
really.
they spelled out what happened probably? Like
Yeah, the book very much just follows the similar path that directly the path of Oswald as the character,
and
takes
it's the
on.
first
Right?
one. So
yes, that's the first.
but like
one,
official narrative. So they're both official narrative, but one happens before it happens.
Right, exactly.
Okay, all right, because I didn't know if it was like,
still
he wrote, because it would have been one thing if he wrote a book that like literally described kind of like the David Paul Hammer, like, inside like what Big Vay told him, like
Right.
what really happened, like the group of, whatever, obviously he wouldn't use names, but he like writes it as a fiction or whatever, and then later he writes a book that like, oh no, Oswald did it, and here's the reasons why.
Right.
Like, that would be quite a like, dude, what are you doing?
100%.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. This is still like what the fuck, but it's just it's a different thing. So it's like
definitely.
I wanted to be clear. I'm like, well, what was the? I do want to take a second, if you don't mind. I feel like this kind of makes this is appropriate time to bring it up. Kind of as I've referenced a couple times, the OKC one. This is only 2 tweets, so it's super quick. We have Tanya Yiki here, friend of the show, widow of Terrence Yiki. She's talking about here the wife of Oklahoma Governor Frank Keating, Kathy Keating, authored this book in '95. It's called In Their Name. So this is the wife of the Oklahoma City governor at the time. She cites an unknown police unit made the first report of the bombing. It's been long suspected the responder who made the initial call was Sergeant Yiki, who was openly at odds with Governor Keating about the narrative of the rescue operation. Now, furthermore, there's another book. As I just kind of this for one, obviously that kind of ties into Yiki, but it's not as relevant to what we're talking about. But it is kind of interesting. There's other Keating's writings book as well. Mm-hmm. We also have 4 years prior to this, Martin Keating, who is Governor Keating's brother. Governor Keating, the literal governor who presided over the Oklahoma City bombing. Just want to be clear on that. Who is a former FBI agent as well. Just throwing that out there too. Legit fucking glowy with political aspirations at this point in time. If you think about if you understand the political game in the 90s, Keating was likely probably someone being looked at for big positions. So anyways, his brother 4 years prior to the bombing wrote a fictional work about the bombing of a federal building by a serendipitously named character, Tom McVeigh.
That's so fucking hilarious.
It's called The Final Jihad by Martin Keating.
There you go. That's man. How the hell are we supposed to at this point behave as if this is coincidental? Like, my God, man. Like these there's something happening where maybe we do provide some sort of, I don't know. I need to further research ley lines and understand. I'm not fucking
losing my mind, man.
Hey, it seems
it.
that way, but I swear, I think there is a tapestry of reality that we have yet to acknowledge.
Oh yeah, this is what I was saying earlier. Like, dude, we need to. I mean, it's one of those things. Like, I don't know when the fuck I would ever get around to it because I have much more pressing reading to get to. But it's like something like the Kabbalah, or as ridiculous as it sounds, I'm like, I do think that there are probably ancient texts that if you know how to read them, and it kind of in the way as I was describing multiple times now, how I was reading the documents of Temple of Set, and they're saying, oh, this belief, that belief, and you have to look past it. You're like, oh, what is the brass tacks here? And you see what is really going on. It's kind of the same idea. You're like, what are the underlying structures here? Where does this originate from? But it does seem like these are tales as old as time. This is what a cult is. This is what cult societies do. They have hidden knowledge. That's all it is. And it's shit like what we've kind of been talking about today. Just weird. Why the fuck are they doing this? Is it just to mind fuck us? Who knows? A lot of this is, as we talked about with SRA type stuff, and then say with the molesting people with animals and shit. It's the fact that it's bizarre and they're trying to create trauma, and you need to have bizarre, unique, because the thing is you adapt to trauma. Your body adapts to things. So if you get raped, for example, it's like, yes, it's awful, but you learn to adapt. But they're trying to tap into the trauma, and so you have to do odd, different things. And so it's almost like, is that what we're seeing when we see things like this? Is this trauma, but they have to make it so bizarre that it has it kind of, I don't know, creates a more of a significant impact or something. You know what I mean? Like the idea of I use the example of getting like raped by Goofy and how your therapist wouldn't believe you. It's kind of the idea like here we are talking about two separate deep events, huge deep events, the JFK assassination and the Oklahoma City bombing, and both of which had books that essentially described exactly what happened, significantly prior to it. And you're like, just like, how is that different than essentially that's the nation being fucked by Goofy. That's what that is.
Yeah. Dude, it's Kathy O'Brien explaining the techniques of how you implement the altars, right? Through, it's almost the same techniques that Michael Aquino was affecting with Lilith, where they would change their reverse gender roles and dress up as he would dress up as a female while they were abusing the child. Like, it's just like you can't make sense of it. It's something that's like, puts you at odds with reality itself, man. Like you have to hemorrhage at that point somehow. And I would imagine, internally just flee into a dark corner. I mean, why the fuck wouldn't you, man? Just make it stop. How can I make it stop? And that's what Kathy O'Brien was claiming. Like, her own father, when she's 5, has a mask on so she can't identify his facial expressions while he's raping her, man. Like,
I think the dark corner is a good metaphor because, I was just thinking about it. It's like you're every time you go into a dark corner, but it's like you need to find a darker and darker corner every time, and you have to find a different corner because now you're doing something different. That corner doesn't cut it anymore. They shine a light on there. You can't hide. Because as you use the example of like going from different weird, traumas, you were like, I don't know, it's just bizarre. It really is hard trying to fucking decipher this shit from the ground. You know what I mean? It's like, maybe we should join a fucking cult, dude, and get into like a secret society or something like that.
Did
and then
I tell you somebody hit me up? Somebody emailed me, bro, because I put out
the Illuminati thing.
No.
Okay. I thought you got the standard. I've gotten that message.
No, I've
before.
gotten that a few times.
Like, what the fuck?
100%. Yeah, it's hilarious.
Like, I don't know if this is real, but you're freaking me out.
Dude, I've got private profiles who have pictures of the local Freemason chapter, and they're like, "Fucking yeah, dude." I've had that shit. Like, hit me up, DM me, and but yeah. They're always sort of it's ridiculous, but anyway, somebody.
I like to think it's a scam. I never respond to any of them, but it's like I'm also like, I don't know. It might not be.
Yeah, I know, right? I got an email though from some dude in North LA. He's like, because I had given my email out on one of the morning streams recently, and
well, I have. You're trying to hide it. People can have.
No. I mean, it's my fucking name. I mean,
okay. That's
I mean, like out. So. But anyway,
is your name a pseudonym on here or no?
No, it's my full name. Yeah.
Okay, then whatever.
Yeah. But anyway,
I didn't know if you did a thing where you like swapped out one of your names, like I think like Clint. I think uses. I think it's the name he uses is like his first and middle name as opposed to his first and last. Yeah, but like whatever. Everyone knows that. I'm not outing him or anything.
No, I'm just completely retarded.
By the way, I can go pee real quick. If you want to keep going, but I'll be right back.
Sounds good, brother. But yeah, I honestly before we stray too far away from that final point that I wanted to make with Discordianism potentially being this, which I do believe that Garrison was 100% right. This was obviously a CIA front. What's up, Rachel? How are you doing? Good to see you in the chat. She says, I'm way behind. I had to rewind it, but I wish Austin had a chance to finish his thoughts on New York / Kabbalah. Oh, man. Jose and I have to discuss the Kabbalah like a little bit more in depth at a certain point in the near future, honestly, because just as far as the New York connection with the Big Apple and I'll have to pull up that picture as well, the portrait of Lucifer summoning his legions and kind of like compare that with the Statue of Liberty and this various overlapping symbolism that again, it shouldn't at all be shocking to us at this point. It's seemingly we're playing a part in this occult philosophy and ideology, whether we want to or acknowledge it or not. It's the ultimate evil playing out, where we are at the very least subconsciously made initiates in the ritual,
We're all
whether
popes.
we that's what it seems like, man.
yeah.
You know, and honestly, it does seem like, how do we subconsciously draw these individuals, on in mass into this kind of upside down inverted moral landscape in many ways? And I think it has to do with this occult philosophy that we've embraced as like, oh, I don't know, the official history of America. And in many ways, it's like, dude, this seems much more like the agenda playing out, as far as directly playing out in regard to this aristocratic elite sect of special interests that many of us have yet to even become willing to conceptualize, because of course it would shatter your paradigm to begin with, and you would have to kind of re-engage with a much different perspective. But to finish the point on Discordianism, dude, because this is crazy, is that so in 1961, less than 2 years prior to the assassination, Greg Hill and Kerry Thornley moved to New Orleans, where they allegedly joined this cabal of conspirators, where apparently the city, of course, is the base of the Mardi Gras revelries operated by the mystic crew of Comus, Comus, performers of the ritual of the killing of the king. Dude, this gets strange. Oswald was recruited by CIA agent David Ferry at a 2-week summer camp of the Louisiana Civil Air Patrol in 1957.
Checks out.
After he had moved to New Orleans in 1961, Thornley also met Ferry at one of his parties, as well as Clay Shaw and Guy Bannister.
What parties are you meeting Ferry
Sounds like
at?
pink ballets to me,
yeah,
brother.
dude. You don't just meet it. If you're at a fucking party that you meet David Ferry at, you need to reevaluate the kind of parties you're going to. Like, I mean, let's real quick. I know you guys don't like it when I fucking when I do it, but it's always worthwhile to go to just take a peek at a David Ferry.
Do it, man.
We just gotta look at him. Anytime we mention him, I just gotta remind you guys who we're talking about, and remind yourselves that he didn't look so bad in his youth. Kind of looked like a Ted Cruz, but yeah, he looked fucking. By God, did he look fucking terrifying when he got older? Yeah, fucking. Yeah, here's this photo. That's the one that goes around. It actually doesn't look as bad. Where's the real bad one? Oh, here's the real bad one that always goes around right here. See, here you go. Jesus Christ. Look at that fucking dude. Imagine running into him at a party.
Hell
like,
no.
Where am I? What am I doing here? Oh, God, why am I tied up?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I have a family. Please stop.
For real. Now pull up Michael Aquino, because it's essentially not far off from a similar, you know what I mean?
Different vibes, but still like, what is this, dude?
Definitely different, but
yeah. Whereas like what's his face is more the straight up fucking like a pedophile build, I guess, is a Ferry. Whereas like this is like, I don't know, a pedophile who thinks he's like, I don't know, royalty or something. I know. Let me bring this up real quick. Here you go. Here's the photos of this goofball, so you can see him at different times. See him with his goofy old school haircut he had back in the day, and then when he adopted his he really perfected the eyebrows later in life. So it's quite the guy. Yeah. All right, let's get
not nuts.
Yeah.
It just, man, at a certain point, it's just what, by the way, Kerry Thornley, implicating the process, obviously, as a part of this, and understanding the New Orleans CIA connections to the incorporation of, I didn't realize that, remember when I covered, when I did The Ultimate Evil, that's when I realized that there was this Tommy Baumler individual who helped incorporate the process in New Orleans. And he had also just so happened to have worked in Guy Bannister's office alongside David Ferry. So the individual who incorporated the Process Church. Sorry,
I didn't mean to distract you. This conspiracy covered. I did meth and heroin for a good 12 years, and I still ain't hanging out with that dude.
Yeah, hell no. I mean, how could you find yourself in that position? You're effectively a psychopath or a
Yes.
victim.
So there I was at a party with David Ferry. Like, dude,
Yeah.
get the fuck out of my house.
No shit. Oh man. So by the way, now Louisiana corporate documents of the process, they revealed that Thomas Jude Baumler, now he and Jack Martin had also jointly incorporated the Louisiana Psychoanalytic Association. So this is where neurolinguistic programming stems from, and then this is just the organization that is essentially, recruiting individuals to train in these expertise. I think in very many ways, and they were also a part of the clergy at the time, which I found strange. These traveling Catholic priests, I forgot what they called themselves. Hold on, I'll find it. But still, then you have this Balmer, Tommy Baumler, also being involved in the American Association of Ethical Hypnotists. So there you go. So it's just, to me, it's the perfect storm brewing surrounding these individuals who directly, again, this is not just like, this is the original incorporation of the Process Church. This isn't a new chapter in New Orleans, right? And David Ferry himself, obviously, found with mind control manuals in his residence whenever he was suicided, and he was a member along with William Joseph Bryan, who, by the way, he might have learned hypnotism techniques from this individual, which is absolutely crazy. But that's according to Daniel Hopsicker's Barry and the Boys, right? Which talks about Barry Seal's connections and with this group, and how he and Tosh Plumley were essentially the getaway pilots in Dallas that day, and had flown in the hit squads that assassinated JFK. So you read into that, and you realize that they're members of this old Catholic church, and a bishop, like they were known Catholic bishops, and also of course David Ferry was revealed to be a pedophile. It did not take too long for that to happen, and he was then expelled from this Catholic bishop tenure. But this is from, and it was exposed by Judith Very Baker in David Ferry, Mafia Plot, Participant in Anti-Castro Bioweapon Plot. And it's a very interesting, but it talks about how she claims that Ferry was part of MK Ultra and that he was trying to do experiments on boys at Tulane University, which is proven to be linked to the MK Ultra program. So then you have an investigation into Ferry molesting boys from his Civil Air Patrol Squadron that shows a far deeper connection to at least one of the boys being hypnotized by Ferry while he was sexually abused. And Cuban exiles such as Sergio Archada Smith were also intimidating witnesses surrounding these implications and allegations. And some of the boys even claimed that Ferry took them to Cuba on unspecified missions. That's Black Ops. He's training these boys in Black Ops while he's hypnotizing and raping them.
Yep.
And so here's the part that really just blew my mind.
Are we getting to the Nazi Nazi fuck kids? The Nazi fuck trophies?
The Nazi breeding programs.
Nazi mind controlled fuck trophies. Yeah.
Exactly. And no connection between Thornley and the process. Man, we're talking too much about the process. We're getting those naysayers in the chat. Hey, it happens. And by the way, don't run defense for the process, or you're a piece of shit in general. Just inherently, I have to say, I'm sorry.
Shai Yuan really points out, hypnotism is not a new thing. Looking at Rasputin and the control he had. Yes, Rasputin. That's a good example. Oh my God. Which he was a great Russian example. What was it, like 1800s, 1900s, something like that? So, yeah.
It was the death of what was the name of that dynasty that was running Russia for all that time?
It's not the Ottomans, right? The Ottomans were Turkey. That was
I'm trying to remember it, but I can't remember at this moment. We'll have to bring that to the table because it's a lot of fun to actually have that conversation about Rasputin, because there's so many different layers to that story, and then it seems to resurface later in more recent history, which is kind of fascinating again. And I think there's a much deeper story there. That was man, what is Yeah, it's black magic for sure.
Romanovs.
The Romanovs. Yeah, that's it.
That's
Yeah,
right. I can think of it.
100%.
Yeah. So yep. And then he preceded Crowley. So it was like he was Crowley before Crowley, and then it was Crowley. All right. So it was Rasputin, then Crowley. Was John Dee? John Dee was what was around the same time as I don't know, whatever. Either I'm just kind of going through historical figures, but anyways, don't mean to cut you off from what you were talking about.
Buddy.
I think we're getting into the old Nazi sex experiments.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Nazi eugenics experiments, which technically this specifically is a straight up breeding program, involving, I think, children that they could raise with by implementing these specific psychological techniques within these children. They could raise them to become very useful operatives in the field. And then
like
also,
all things that got outsourced to India, and now we have Vivek Ramaswamy. So
yeah, exactly. Could you imagine? That would be
sorry.
so
Go on.
funny,
I
dude.
always just had this theory because of stupid big head that he was some like MK
Hilarious.
Ultra, and they're just mass producing him in India.
Hey, I would not at all be surprised.
No, right?
So after this is crazy, man, because again, he's Thornley meeting Ferry at these parties with Clay Shaw and Guy Bannister, and of course these men all are the individuals forming the nexus and the cabal of the anti-Kennedy conspiracy that Jim Garrison revealed later on, and so, man, which by the way, when the investigation was reopened in '66, it involved clearly a priority of focusing on the mafia and these anti-Castro activists and writers, artists, bohemians, right? And these Nazis and homosexual subculture in New Orleans, which is exactly what they're all a part of. This strange homosexual subculture that seemed to involve all these paperclip Nazis, which is very interesting, which all, link back to, again, military intelligence kind of, not only were they were interrogating these SS and Nazi scientists and things of that nature, and really kind of, I think, just learning from them and figuring out which of them were actually the most useful candidates for Paperclip, and then kind of ushering them through that avenue of the rat lines to a safe haven, wherever that might have been, whether it's down in Colonia Dignidad for a time, or you get to go up to the Nazi death cult safe haven in fucking Ontario, Canada or something, waiting to exploit the people at the Oak Ridge facility, while you're having these strange occult sex rituals with young children, which is apparently what they were up to up there. But anyway, so it all seems to coalesce perfectly into one strange network. And I think that Jim Garrison was prying the mask off unintentionally. He didn't even realize what was happening.
Mm-hmm. It still astounds me. I didn't know about David Ferry until the last couple years. The idea that he's not a character that everyone knows about is just this dude's fucking I don't know, that it is as you said, Garrison kind of tearing off the mask. It's kind of feels like this seems like knowledge that we got way ahead of when you think we would have got that sort of info, because it's
absolutely,
what a fucking dude connected with Barry Seal, fucking with Oswald. I think there's another one, I forget what it was.
Fucking HIV. I mean, the dude's Dr.
Dude.
Mary's monkeys, and
David. The stuff that's officially out there on the record is insane about this guy. This stuff, they were just they were surveilling him, and then the crazy stuff that happened to the people surveilling him, and then just the results of their surveillance, just weird shit about how he would just be pacing around his house naked, and just this bizarre, most dude, what the fuck is with this dude?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of weird, just bizarre story to look into. Yeah, it is a mask coming off thing, and it's almost like a thing where the mask comes off, and I guess kind of tying into the weird trauma and stuff, where it's you almost don't even have the context to understand what the fuck's going on, because you're this is so fucking weird, and the mask coming off, it's someone pulled their mask off and someone has a Cthulhu face under it. You're I don't even know what the fuck to do with this. My reality is just fucked right now.
Shattered. Yeah. Yeah. It's shattered, and now you have to ask the question, what are they truly capable of? That is the ultimate question at this point that I consistently come back to, that I don't have the answer. But it seems extraordinary.
Yeah, wasn't it Ferry that they said he was like involved in black masses and like? Because you mentioned the fact that he got kicked out of, like he was trying to become to go with the Catholic Church, then he did his own thing, I guess, and then impersonated being a priest many times.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
and apparently, he would dress up while he abused as a priest occasionally as well. So that makes a lot of sense to me. That and he liked that sort of like that Zelensky style Fidel Castro look, right? Where when he was with the Civil Air Patrol, he would also kind of embrace that. Which, by the way, that story of that guy who knew Barry Seal, who they explained like how shocked they were when they saw when they actually for the first time were introduced to David Ferry. Barry Seal was like, "What the fuck?" His mind was blown, but I thought it was hilarious. Or no, it was the guy that Barry Seal introduced to David Ferry. That was it. I'll go back to that at some point. But anyway,
I did bring you a little bit off track though. But we were at building towards the fuck factories.
yeah. That's where we're at, buddy. So obviously, again, what is going on? This not only this neo-paganism and but yet you have this homosexual Nazi thread as well, which is very strange and interesting. But Ferry, obviously a practitioner of black magic rituals, as you mentioned, involved in animal sacrifices, blood drying, and homosexual rites. So he's using sex magic. I mean, absolutely, and blood ritual magic as well.
Yeah.
So
Ferry, it's all about using bodily fluids in general, whether it's blood, feces, jizz,
and that with
vaginal fluid, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. With Kinkora, it was specifically, they had a recipe. It was disgusting, man. But but yeah. So Ferry, also a high priest in the apostolic, which that always makes me think Jim Jones. Apostolic socialism. That was his ideology that he was bringing to the table for the People's Temple. I'm like, you motherfuckers.
Once again, it's this idea of this woo-woo that's not really even religious. You're like, 100%. What is this? You're like, I believe in an economic idea. You're like, what?
It's crazy, man.
Okay, sure. All right, whatever. We're a cult. Let's move on. So,
right.
Yeah.
So, high priest in the Apostolic Old Catholic Church of North America, which Jim Keith, which Monica just brought up to me. He's an amazing researcher and author. He speculated that this, in reality, was the Gnostic Catholic Church of the OTO. And Jim Garrison, he says this specific organization, he suspected was that this church was also a CIA front. This is like a pattern, my friend, that we are beginning to recognize all too
I've never
often.
seen this before.
Yeah, 100%. And so in 68, Thornley gets subpoenaed by Garrison to appear before a grand jury. And the belief was that Thornley and Oswald were involved together in running these covert CIA operations, and that Garrison's theory happened to involve that the assassination being a part of a homosexual thrill killing, plus the excitement of getting away with a perfect crime, this criminal syndicate organization. But he had just the fact that you can tell Garrison like can't stand these faggots, man. It's like the funniest thing ever, right? But
yeah, can you
Reverend
imagine in
Raymond,
that time period uncovering all this as a normal American? You're like, what the fuck? They're all gay, all of them,
right? All of them.
Are you telling me Freddie Mercury's gay? Are you kidding me,
dude? Just wait till here in a moment, because hey, you remember how much this gay spook butt stuff action was happening in Watergate, right? They're all like lodging like fucking what's it called, they're depositing like these essentially these poison pills through the anal the anal cavity of their gay lovers that they're seducing into yeah.
It's just the
Yeah,
craziest story.
yeah, we have talked about that. I remember now. I
telling you,
made
man.
the obligatory jokes about killing with your dick, obviously.
We still haven't told that full story because it's the Carl Schaffler connection that we have to finish with our Watergate episode.
Yeah,
But,
we need to do that. I'm about to be actually finally going to 2 episodes a week, so we'll definitely have to do that. I'll definitely be able to squeeze you in here soon. So I think I want to get Jules on here soon to cover. Cause I'm about to do the Aquino thing, and I want him to read it as well, and then do a follow up episode where we kind of then analyze it, deeper from his perspective.
Awesome.
So yeah.
But I was reading through it as well. It's pretty awesome. It's not awesome, but I mean, as far as awe-inspiring, because you're like, what in God's name? The philosophy these people.
Yeah, I will say it's not. I don't think I'm going to be coming with any like new, I guess, info, but I think it's info most people don't have access to, and it's coming from the horse's mouth, which I find interesting. But you could, if you wanted to, there is 2 volumes on the Temple of Set written by Aquino himself, but who the fuck is going to read 2 volumes on that? I'm not, and I don't know. The same idea as we were talking about earlier with like the Kabbalah. I don't really see me or you reading the Kabbalah anytime soon.
You tie that in with the mind war and the psychology of victory. What the? Like, how is that not what we're witnessing? Like, I don't know. That's what it looks like to me. We are in the modern day battleground, and we're surrounded. and I think most of us have yet to acknowledge that fact. But so then again, we're almost there. So Garrison's theory, right? Very interesting to me. And you have this Reverend Raymond Broshears, who is an active member of the New Orleans homosexual community and a former roommate of David Ferry, who placed Thornley in the company of Oswald, Clayshaw, and David in New Orleans in the fall of 1963. According to Broshears, Oswald was a homosexual. And he said that Thornley, and he maintains that apparently Thornley maintains that he's not homosexual, but I say he is. And I say that to the whole world, if he is not a homosexual, why was he in homosexual bars? Why, if he is not a homosexual, right? Is he actually like swimming in these circles? And also you just notice that, man, have you ever, you should go back and, because Tommy Lee Jones fucking murdered it in JFK, Oliver Stone, the Oliver Stone movie, because they all did, really. I mean, shit, man. Joe Pesci as David Ferry, Clayshaw at a gay strip club in his basement with stripper poles and bondage equipment. Yeah, I know. Hey, let's finish this story, because
we're getting saucy. If you're like, don't worry about that.
It's so hilarious. So it gets nuts, man. Apparently, Broshears notes that Thornley's resemblance to Oswald was rather frightening at a certain time during whenever, of course, all of this was being done as far as the clandestine operation being conducted. And so Garrison argued that Thornley had impersonated Oswald, as we've said, between the years 61 and 63. He only lived a few blocks away from Oswald in New Orleans, and they were seen together on repeated occasions, according to several witnesses. And one of them, named Barbara Reed, who was a voodoo priestess, and claimed that she claimed that she was a member of Thornley's Discordian Society, and here's the crazy part. She's a voodoo priestess named Barbara Reed, member of Thornley's Discordian Society, and entirely connected as a member of the Process Church in New Orleans. So you have a direct connection there to this Barbara Reed. And so then you have, and by the way, if you do go back to
if you don't mind, I know they're going to get yelled at by the chat for interrupting you, but I do think that's interesting what you just pointed out there. So there's this chick who is part of this, also part of the Process Church. Here's one other thing from our private conversation we had the other day, like as we were kind of reeling over all this. I find it interesting, the parallels, as I mentioned with Temple of Set. There's a subscription fee to it. I believe it was something like $60 for the first year, and then after that it was like 30 or something recurring. This was in the 70s too, so bear that in mind. I don't know. So, not cheap, but not like super duper expensive. You would think it'd be more expensive for a glowy club, but either way, enough to keep people out, I guess, probably. But anyways, then we have... Then we reference the Chicken Hawk show all the time. One of the common things that shows up in that book is the concept of how they would use They almost had like subscription models where people would pay for magazines or whatever. And you mentioned, the process. He was also a member of the, so it just seems like we're seeing a recurring theme where it just feels like as if you're like a jobs listings type thing, like as if like, oh, I'm subscribed for this subscription model over here. They'll let me know when any jobs drop from there. I have this. They'll let me know when this drops. So we see this go, and so it is like it's almost like they're part of tapped into different networks.
Yes,
and it's like it's just
structured, well established occult pedophile underground.
Exactly.
Entirely established by members of intelligence who are directly involved and embedded within this very same societal framework. Which is directly under the nose and unbeknownst to the vast majority who have yet to acknowledge this as a reality. Because if you're not a sadistic psychopath who wants to pursue, the abuse of young, small children, or, also pursue power, which is another huge aspect of it, right? Because this is just a natural aspect of the human compromise agenda of how do we compromise, political puppets and put them into place. And that, I think, is a huge aspect, but this just goes to show that not only was Thomas Jude Baumler incorporating the process and in the same exact building with David Ferry, Guy Bannister, and Clay Shaw and Kerry Thornley. You also have this other member of Thornley's Discordian Society who's also a member of the process and who's a voodoo priestess hanging out with these people at the time. And so then you have all these witnesses from the neighborhood as well, a number of witnesses who saw Thornley at the Oswald's apartment a number of times, and in fact even reported that they saw him there so often they didn't even know which was the husband, Oswald or Thornley. That's according to all his neighbors at the time. And so Garrison, he began to speculate that the infamous photos of Oswald, right, that we all know now, were superimposed with him with the rifle in one hand and a copy of the communist newspaper, The Daily Worker, in the other. And he says this was likely fabricated by Thornley and his accomplices, other accomplices with Thornley at the time. So that makes all the sense because he's an impersonator of Oswald's, knows him so well, is just seemingly, I don't know if what happens if you're more of a controlled victim in the abuse network. Maybe you're the handler of another one of the victims in the abuse network. I'm not sure. Who knows how it works. But
I think the subscription model that I kind of laid out, I think, if you think about it, it allows you to essentially put out free actors into the world. And if they just kind of know the proper things to tap into, they can kind of just act as independent actors somewhat, while not really being independent. So it's like they just know, like, oh, if I want to tap into this realm, and you get subscription and they hear from somebody else, and obviously then, as I mentioned, they all have these hierarchies. So then you kind of work your way up through there. That way, they can kind of vet you, make sure, hey, this guy is legit. He's one of us. He knows the things, whatever is the in group knowledge, and then from there they move in, and boom, the easy way to. You could almost have like just the idea that there could be insane shit, with all this MK Ultra stuff, with this guy, this girl. It's like you could just throw these people out in the world, put certain tells or specific things they know, or whether it's subconscious or consciously, just kind of tap into a larger network and just kind of set them out there and just imbue certain knowledge they need from the jump, from a young age, and just throw them out there. And then I can't think of a better example of like kind of hands off, like, whatever, like, okay, cool, now go. Like, but
man. No, 100%, buddy. That's I'm at this point, like, man, the way you witness the sheep dipping of Oswald, this is the perfect way you would do it, and the idol warriors would play a vital role in that notion of the portraying of Oswald as a communist sympathizer, which is what Garrison himself thought was the case, was that when he saw the idol warriors, he began to believe that this was Thornley's intent to portray Oswald as a communist sympathizer, which he believed was a well-known tactic in the intelligence community. And he said the term sheep dipping, dude, which just Come on. After what the hell, I remember Tim McVeigh, man. He's the first time I came across the term, brother. So for me personally, I'll always have that connection with McVeigh as my first. He took my V card when it came to my conceptual understanding and knowledge of what a sheep dipped operative could potentially look like, and I'll never forget it for the rest of my life, and thank God that of course. So anyway, I'll finish this final point, and then we'll probably end up just getting out of here because obviously. So you have this superimposed picture, and then you have Garrison later suspecting this is what he believed about the Discordian Society itself. He said that it was a CIA front, and what he said especially incriminated Thornley was his public celebration on the announcement of JFK's murder, and the fact that he would introduce himself as follows: "I'm Kerry Thornley. I masterminded the assassination. How do you do?" I swear to God, that's what they said he would say to people. And by the way, he writes a book acknowledging that fact, or at least it wasn't published until after his death in the year 2000. But I know he was working on a book that was about I was a part of the conspiracy to assassinate JFK or something was even the name of it. I think the title was a confession. But in less than 2 weeks after the assassination, Thornley moves to Alexandria, Virginia, right by the CIA headquarters. Garrison finally charged Thornley with perjury after Thornley denied that he had been in contact with Oswald since 1959. And then later, the perjury charge is even dropped by Garrison's successor, Harry Connick Sr., who happened to be the father of the successful singer and movie star actor Harry Connick Jr.
It's kind of funny. I get what that statement there just kind of made me laugh in my head as like an idiot, just because it's like, that you then said, "Hey, so and so senior," and then you go, "And his son." You're like, "Yeah, no shit."
Yeah, right. 100%.
Although I guess he could have had another son. I know, whatever. That was me being silly. I shouldn't even have cut you off there. I just thought made me laugh.
Right.
It was a stupid little nerd joke. But so when are we getting to the fuck factories?
Yeah, I'm almost there. I'm gonna skip past because there's a really interesting this whole thing. It's just too long, obviously, but it's so fascinating going through it. And so anyway, it gets a little bit deeper here because you start to realize that Thornley was becoming convinced at a certain point that he and Oswald were products of MK Ultra. Right. And he said specifically that they were products of MK Ultra in order to create Manchurian candidates, and he named his alleged handlers as being two mysterious middle-aged men named Gary Kirstein and Slim Brooks. Now this gets strange, dude, because Thornley apparently told that his brother was Lee Harvey Oswald and that their father was Admiral Karl Donitz, 1891 to 1980. Nazi admiral who briefly succeeded Hitler in 1945. Oh my God. Like, tell me that isn't the craziest thing you've ever heard, right? And so, and by the way, I have a picture. Now, if you're talking a eugenics experimentation program and Nazi breeding, some sort of Nazi breeding agenda, I could see that this could potentially be the father of Lee Harvey Oswald. And I might be wrong. The shape of their head's a little different at the top.
You got a picture here? Bring it up.
There's the likeness.
If you got the photo, bring that sucker up, buddy.
Boom. Tell me there's not a likeness. There's a likeness, right?
All right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I mean, come on now.
I mean, it's once again, we're out in wild territory. I was super speculative, but like, as we kind of mentioned, I did say that like it is notable that a lot of people were able to tell it clearly wasn't him in some of these impersonations because for one reason or another. So kind of my point is that, but if you were going to create a person and you wanted to do some sort of op like this and you were doing the whole breeding, wouldn't it make sense to have brothers? I mean, even if you could, I mean, hell, you look at the IVF stuff. I bet you that was probably born out of stuff like this. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. That way you could get twins. Because can you imagine if we'd had Oswald twins?
Yeah.
Dude, they could.
Oh
You
my
think about
God.
Fed shit they could pull with that? Like they could go fucking nuts.
Exactly, man.
Dude, that sounds like a
And
good movie too, by the way.
100%. 100%. Yeah, but the idea, you can't just dismiss this at face value as being a possibility. That's the point, you know. And I think that alone, and to me personally, makes a lot more sense than the official narrative that we're intended to embrace. Sorry
It
to
would,
say.
if you're going to try to run some sort of complicated, I think it was you the other day, yourself, that said when you were covering the whole concept of like conspiracy theorists, there was maybe it was a Dulles or somebody, or actually it might have been. I think I was leading to read this in an audiobook, but they used the excuse that like, their reasoning for how it clearly wasn't an op was like if even one little thing was off, like it went different that day. Like I believe it was Dulles that made some sort of statement like that, and kind of that was his like go-to. Like, man, looking through this, the thing that really stuck out to me was just like if one little thing went different, he's like, there's no way we could have pulled this op off. Like that was like what he was getting at. Like this is just such a difficult op.
You
and
have
like
Peter Thiel. Is that what you're talking about?
I want to say it was a Dulles statement, but I wouldn't be surprised if Thiel said it too. But yeah,
I know Peter Thiel when he went on Rogan, it was the funniest damn thing I ever saw. He's like, he basically says that he doesn't believe that the intelligence community is sophisticated enough in modern day to be able to accomplish operations such as MK Ultra, and I'm like, oh my God, dude.
With people like you, they are.
Right. And I thought it was even more funny that his perspective on it was like, and that is obviously that was a bad thing. That he believed that the intelligence community should be far more sophisticated in running clandestine operations. Basically, was his vision. So I just thought it was kind of hilarious at the very least. But I'm not. I can't quite remember.
So So the claim is no. Forgive me if I missed this, but so he's saying that him and Thornley are saying that him and Oswald are brother. He's saying that guy is his dad. Now, was there anything that confirmed that it's Thornley's dad at least, or is that just who he thinks is his dad?
We'll get into. We'll finish this off real quick, and then because this is not really any of it is confirmed, obviously. So it's just all very speculative.
Probably never will be, to be honest. This is
I would highly doubt it would be. Yeah, but so Thornley obviously names these handlers, he claims, were Gary Kirstein and Slim Brooks. So Thornley later came to believe this is the craziest thing ever, Jose. Especially considering what we've discussed and talked about at this individual at a very deep level. So he later believes that Gary Kirstein, one of his handlers, had in reality been senior CIA officer and future Watergate burglar E. Howard Hunt. So that makes a lot more sense considering the timing of all of this as well. And E. Howard Hunt being so directly involved with the kill squads, getting his ears pinned back after being recognized in Dallas. As soon as he goes from Dallas home, he uses his son, St. John Hunt, as a fucking, as a, what's the term for when you're trying to maintain your innocence and you're attempting to come up with a cover story.
There's alibi.
Yeah, thank you so much. Oh my God. Yeah. He used his son, St. John Hunt, as an alibi while he was in Dallas.
Yeah.
And St. John Hunt has acknowledged that fact. And so he knows for a fact where his dad, and he thinks his mom potentially could have even been there, which many people have claimed that Dorothy Hunt was actually in Dallas as well, because she was a key CIA operative and even a member of the OSS. So she was a very useful. I forget what Nixon had said about her, but they very much respected her ability in the covert field of intelligence, So, but anyway, so according to Hunt's autobiography, guess where he was stationed at the same time Kerry Thornley? The Atsugi Air Base in Japan, where they're running all these insane MK Ultra experiments, and where Lee Harvey Oswald is stationed just before his fake defector program is triggered and given the green light, and he goes over and starts trailing the U-2 spy plane every fucking where it goes in the Soviet Union as an intelligence dangle. Hey, look at me, you can trust me. And in reality, it was a sheep dipping mechanism. And so then you have Thornley and he who determines that Slim Brooks, must have been Jerry Milton Brooks, a member of the 1960s right-wing activist group called the Minutemen, which Jim Garrison also connected to the JFK assassination. So Slim Brooks, Jerry Milton Brooks, who became known to his comrades as the Rabbi, served as Robert Depew's intelligence and security officer. Brooks, who had done some file work for Bannister in 1962, had identified his deputy, Hugh F. Ward, as also belonging to the Minutemen, as well as an outfit called the Anti-Communism League of the Caribbean, or the Caribbean, which was headed by Guy Bannister, after he came to New Orleans in 1955. So Jerry Milton Brooks credited the ACLC with helping the CIA overthrow the leftist Arbenz government in Guatemala. This is it, right? To me, this is the playbook, and it's showing itself
over and over again.
Over and over. And,
I mean, we're talking about sheep dipping with Oswald, and it's like, we had that happen. You yourself mentioned it with McVeigh, and it's like, obviously that's like my wheelhouse. And it's like, dude, I mean, hell, like it's just, if anything, it's like, it's weird. It does seem like though that like the farther back, the more brazen it is, because it's like, I don't think McVeigh was some sort of fucking like a fucking experiment or something. There's a lot of documents that he clearly seemed to be a real person who existed in the world, and so like, but point being is, it's like, it seems like a more toned down version, but it's a similar thing. Right. So it's like, I think they were able to get away with more back in the day. Never forget, we used to live in a nation that believed in WWEs.
Right. Like, James Holmes, think of like an Adam Lanza and a James Holmes. Like, dude, breeding program, potentially, mind control, neuro-linguistic programming. It's possible. I mean, both their parents were, I don't know if we would consider them elites, but they were involved in the LIBOR scandal. So it's like, is it that crazy that these people might have been in some weird shit? His grandpa was psychological operations, military intelligence.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So there's
that was what I told you that, didn't I? The Lanza. Yeah, that was I believe I
found it. I found James Holmes' connection there.
Holmes.
Yeah, his grandpa.
Because I told you Lanza, I think it was his great grandpa. Okay, I thought you were talking about the Lanza connection, because his great grandpa, I don't know if you could call him Intel, but he was a mobster who was working with Intel. So literally fighting off secret Nazis. He was part of an Intel operation as a mob enforcer of some sort, looking for secret Nazis out there in New York. That's what I believe Lanza's great grandpa.
That is so funny. You know what they probably were doing? Laundering the Jew gold or something.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's what I heard was happening with the Jeffrey McDonald case in Fort Bragg, and also it was all connected back to, apparently, with the son of Sam, one of the victims. They worked for Nugenhan Bank and just so happened to be connected to the Nazi gold being laundered at the time. And so, again, it just made all the sense in the world that they were involved in the clandestine ops and targeted as members of the targeted assassination group in the son of Sam case. So it was definitely, there was a motive there. Much deeper than what we're expected to believe. But so the final note here, and then really we can at a certain point, maybe even on Tuesday on Already Dead or something.
I'll be back. I'm probably gonna be back for the morning show tomorrow too. If there's stuff you want to talk over together. Or so we can we can follow up. I think it sounds like we hit all the beats.
Yeah, we're almost there. I have literally this final point, and then that's basically it for this. Well,
you like phrase it in a way as if you had something else. I was like, we can talk about tomorrow, but it sounds like you're basically.
Oh yeah, no, we have a lot more, but this is just kind of
you mean different topics. I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's still associated pretty. Okay.
Directly, the spawn off of this. I got it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But the final point here for this Nazi breeding program is that Kerry Thornley, this is crazy, man, but it's what we were just talking about. He believes and came to suspect that his own parents were Nazi spies who had made a deal with the occult Nazis at the time to conduct eugenics experiments. And the ultimate purpose of this was to create Manchurian candidates. And Thornley further even believed that he was the child of a Nazi breeding experiment that used both him and Lee Harvey Oswald, who he suspected might have been his brother, as guinea pigs. Thornley then alleged that while on active duty, he was subjected to electronic mind control transmissions James Holmes, man, Dr. Robert Duncan, man, maintaining that a device planted without his knowledge in the base of his neck picked up the voices of a Nazi covert operations unit attempting to manipulate his mind. That's fucking Tim McVeigh too, right? Isn't that what he said was happening to him?
Well, yeah, I don't remember if it was specifically voices, but I believe he claimed he had like a tracking device, and then it gets in the minutia of where it was.
Yeah,
I mean, but
who was it? He told that inmate. I remember that I heard on Scott Horton's show years ago.
David Paul Hammer that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, he's the one who gave him the tell-all for like a tell-all book, which that's probably going to be the next one of my Oklahoma City bombing ones I go, because that's where he literally is like supposedly McVeigh gave him a tell-all of what really happened, and that's that book. He kind of names them in like he refers to like a character as the Major, like he kind of changes their names.
I remember.
Where it's people, are I'm like, let's be real, it's Roger Moore. Like if you read it, you're like, dude, it's Roger Moore, and like so there's other characters you can kind of piece together. You're like, oh, that's clearly
Terry
so-and-so.
Nichols said some shit about the Major as well, didn't he? No, I remember it's Paul David Hammer or whatever his name is. I know he did for sure. Yeah, but anyway, point being is that it's still a strange, synchronicity, right? And so Thornley apparently he viewed the whole psychoanalytical establishment. He says this as fact, that it was established as a product of Nazism and an outgrowth of the eugenics movement. So that all makes sense for the modern day eugenics programs that we're seeing at this very moment play out, especially with Thornley apparently claiming, right, his father was this Admiral Karl Donitz, and Donitz's representative in the United States happened to be H. Keith Thompson, who also was in touch with Oswald's mother, Marguerite. So that is crazy, right? Like, I mean, come on. I mean, as far as like laying out some sort of like plausible conceptual outline for how this could have been conducted in a clandestine manner that makes sense. That makes sense to me, And so say what you want. I'll do my best. I attempt to remain skeptical and objective at all times. So I'm sitting here going, I'm not certain of anything, but damn, this makes a lot more sense to me than the alternative. So maybe it is a shitty spot, and they probably don't even require to put it physically embedded in your neck at this point anymore. Who knows?
Usually, it was always brought up with like dental stuff. Usually,
so
that
was
either brain implants or dental.
So, Tim McVeigh said it was like in a molar or something.
Yeah, so there's supposedly research that like I guess something about like if they can put it in your dental and still somehow, I think it's something with frequencies or something. I don't know, but. Hey, I just saw that apparently Teal made a dire wolf, so that's fucking cool. They brought him back, dude.
What?
So, dire wolf. I was looking through the bookmark thing real quick, and I just saw someone made a dire wolf. A teal backed company made dire wolves because dire wolves went extinct 10,000 years ago.
What? So they're doing like the fucking woolly mammoth shit. Is that what they're doing?
I'll show you real quick. I just thought this was a fun little kind of like maybe to kind of ended on is adorable.
That's cool. But
I mean, look, it's a first. You're looking at the first howls of a direwolf in over 10,000 years. They named them Romulus and Remus. All things lead back to Rome. Of course, we have to make this schizo. I just think it's adorable. Look at him.
It is. That's so funny.
Aww,
so how big are they supposed to get if they're
I don't know. I don't know if direwolves were like, they were significantly larger, weren't they?
Supposedly.
I don't think they were like stupid big though. They aren't like lion big. I think there's like probably still sub 200 pounds. They're probably like a mastiff big, if I had to guess, like a large mastiff, if I had to guess.
Dude, I know some of those. Remember on Rogan, he brought up that short-faced bear and shit, and like some of those extinct predators from like even California for a time were like, some of the most extraordinary, at least allegedly. I don't even know how much of recorded history I believe anymore at this point.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah. Well, all right, buddy, you ready to get out of here? I think we hit it all, unless there's something else you got. I mean, there was one I did want to go into, but we can say that for tomorrow. They'll still be fine tomorrow. I was going to talk about old RFK and how he is completely caved, even on the medical side of things. So, like, everyone's like, oh, guys, well, I know he's awful on the Jew thing, but he's
Right.
in HHS, so who gives a fuck? Now we've already got this all this Jew stuff he's doing in HHS. Plus, he's not even really being the good fucking super,
You remember
health
I've
guy.
been tracking this MMR bullshit from day one.
There you go. So
And
we'll be able to talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because he directly, the big thing is that they like directly fucking dropped like if you like the words of the text, like you can look at directly like him saying the opposite and him saying it now. So it's like, whereas before it was like, I think it was kind of questionable, some of the statements he said, whereas he just directly straight up said it this time around. So, but I guess, yeah.
Let's get out of here, brother.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds good to me. We'll be back here in the morning. Do you want to plug and then I'll take us out, or what do you want to do?
Sure. I guess it's weird as backwards. I mean, if you guys want to support what I'm doing, obviously like, share, subscribe on all of our stuff. Like, share, subscribe, leave 5-star reviews for both of us. If you want to support and get a product, Nadeau Shave Co. Use Jose at checkout for 10% off. But to the patrons, if you do want to support the show, particularly me, but also I'd recommend you support Austin as well. But if you do want to support the show, patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. Cash is king, baby. I mean, that's the best way you really can support the show. Lowest level's $2, and at the $2 levels where you get access to early episodes. Like I said, tonight I'm probably going to cover some Temple Set stuff, and I am upping. I think this week I'll do 2. From now on, I'll do 2 a week. So I have 2 behind the paywall, or 2 a week behind the paywall, and then 4 altogether is the goal. So we're working towards that. We're basically almost there. That's and then also you get the ad-free RSS feed there, and also the access to the video chat function of me and Austin's weekly Already Dead show. You also get that on Austin's Patreon as well. So you support either of us, you get that. And then the highest levels of my sponsors, I read them off every episode. It's a big old thank you. At my co-host on Terror Gang, at Terror Gang Toad, at Brigadiers, at ZOVRECK, at _ Zeal, Tim Tuttle, at Jolin Klebold, and Will Bell, Delicious Blueberry Rabbit Eye Wine, then big fan of the show, Torme, and then at INWARD Lover. That's all I got. But actually, no, follow me on Twitter at Terror Gang Jose, and that's where you can suggest, and Austin at Theater Thug AWP, and that's where you guys can tag us and let us know stuff you want us to cover in the show. We're usually pretty good about that. I don't think we covered any of you guys' content, but I believe yesterday and the one before that, I believe, were very, very, very high in stuff you guys suggested. But be your eyes and ears out there. You'd be surprised how often it was something that I was super interested in. You guys tagged me in, and because of you, that's the only reason I realized it. So, but anyways, Austin, pass it off to you. But appreciate you, bud.
Hell yeah, brother. Rachel says, Jose, David Ferry's going to haunt my dreams now. Those brows. Thanks a lot.
Right? Yeah, they were like, what were they, like taped on or glued on or something? They were like literally glued on.
It looks
hair.
like when Job, remember that dude with alopecia in Arrested Development, and Job steals his eyebrows? That's what it fucking looks like. But so anyway, nothing but love, everybody. You know this, and we'll be back in the morning with some fun and I'm sure legitimately deep diving content that is going to kind of cross these sort of similar lines that we tend to reside in as far as these threads that I'm going down at this point. A lot of eugenics and mind control techniques once more, of course, but that is sort of what draws my attention. I think my original episode was MK Ultra, right? So like this kind of where I started, but still it's fascinating to me. And this does make a lot of sense. But so anyway, I love you guys, and you can follow me at the Underclass Podcast. Definitely the best place to support me is patreon.com/the Underclass Podcast. Check out the most recent interview I did with Monica Perez, and that was a lot of fun, man. And then I just chilled with Jules later for like 4 fucking hours.
You sure did.
For real, dude. But yeah, check that out as well. And I have a couple more interviews this week, but man, we got to start brainstorming, workshopping some ideas for the upcoming big interview, just kind of like keep our structured ideas a little bit more conceptually outlined, We're
going to have to really bring it back to basics. We'll have to do the notes. And then I think we're going to have to go, because like the first one's Oklahoma City bombings. We'll maybe tomorrow, maybe sometime soon, in the next couple of weeks, We'll sit down, and especially morning dump, and kind of go through different things and be like, hey, this is kind of structure things a little bit. And I think we kind of already have it. We're actually just expanding. It's almost like we're just expanding notes as we go on and pulling from. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll definitely be able to get to that soon. If not, me and you have a little slumber party, so we have plenty of time to iron over our notes together.
Yeah.
So yeah,
like I promoted that as a slumber party on Great Build. All right, but yeah, we better get out of here.
Yeah, I gotta pee.
Tomorrow morning we'll be here 7 a.m. Well, my time. fucking 10 a.m. Eastern time.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course tomorrow night's Already Dead, so keep that in mind. Hey, say what now? What's up, my brother?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, gay CIA mind control. It's all gay, man.
Hell yeah,
I don't
dude.
get it, but all right, guys, have a good fucking Monday, man. Enjoy your day, and I'll catch you tomorrow morning.
Ooh.